Hey, what's up, fellas? We're back here with the 120 watt Cyclone waste oil heater. Today we're going to be going over some ignition procedures and some flow rate testing to determine the output of this thing in various settings. Just for comparison, this particular unit right here, I believe, is 140,000 BTUs. Alright, Jason, so this is what I came up with. I kind of feel like I'm going to redo this test because it's Friday and just too much stuff was going on. My phone's blowing up. I got people showing up at the house. Dinner time, all this human crap going on. So, at any rate, we did get some great footage. And we did get this thing dialed in just right. So, in this video, we are going to be looking at some different operating settings. You see here, I got this thing turned down to a very low setting. I'm definitely very happy with how quiet it is. It makes a little bit of noise. It's not as loud as a vacuum cleaner. You can talk standing next to it. I think that little blower is probably louder. But for the most part, this thing did not flame out one time in the whole 2-hour test. It does have some buildup inside the combustor at the end of the test, but I don't think that's anything to worry about. I think that at the beginning of the day, if you just gave it a little scrape, it would probably be all right. Or just turn the blower on and tap on it with something. But for the most part, I think this thing's going to make a great heater. It is issuing pure flame with no splatter whatsoever.
We're going to see what it can do on
some almost completely smoke-free, except for in the very beginning. You see there's a little bit of a puff that comes off of it. But there's 50 kilowatts right there. That's actually a pretty good fireball. You can heat a pretty large shop with that. That's about 2 of those big salamanders. It's about $1,000 for the salamander right there. So as far as heating power goes,
2 people can stand next to it.
And as I said, we're burning free fuel here. This is freezing cold waste oil. It's like 10-degree waste oil. It's as thick as syrup, maybe even a little thicker. This is not full synthetic waste oil. This came from school buses and cars and all kinds of stuff. So it's got a little bit of everything in there.
Actually glows.
And as thick as it is, I'd almost think that it probably has some actual lubricant in there too. Some differential fluid or something, because it's some pretty thick stuff. But then again, bus oil is probably pretty thick. And I know this guy works on a lot of buses. Look how thick this stuff is. I try to get you a quick shot of it. I pulled the camera away too quick.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the test. But rather than just turn everything off, I'm only going to shut the fuel off. We're going to leave the blower run. And that's going to burn some of that built up carbon out of there. Let's take a look. Ooh, getting some hot air.
All right, so we've seen how to shut it down. See how we got a little bit of a carbon monoxide flame going there, and it's going to burn some of that carbon out. But how do you light this thing?
Open this now to where we had it the other day. Okay, we got oil input. We'll try this.
All right, guys, for ignition procedure, we first add some secret sauce. But before we add the secret sauce, we have to validate that we have fuel flow. And the moment we validate fuel flow, we turn the pump off with all the valves configured the way we like them. Then after adding the secret sauce, we're going to go ahead and take a blowtorch and stick it directly into the ignition port. This secret sauce is just dirty waste oil and gasoline mixed at a 50-50 ratio. So let's check this out. All right, fellas, so here's the secret to getting this thing lit. See how I got my hand over that blower? When you do that, the only air that's being input into the system is the cooling air from the blower. Some of these have a double wall that allows cooling air from the motor to also be sucked into the intake of the blower. But either way, putting your hand over that intake is the only way you'll ever get this thing lit. You'll sit there all day long trying to light this thing until you finally figure out, well, why don't I try putting my hand over the intake? Maybe it's a little bit too much air. Because in the beginning, that's exactly what it is. You're cooling everything off too much. So now you see here we got kind of a little bit of a good fire going. I'm going to close the ignition port. Now, as I said, you may find yourself taking too long to get this lit. You have to look down inside there to make a judgment call. Do I need to turn the pump off? Okay, so I've turned the fuel pump back on. We were running on residual fuel in the puddle there. And now I'm going to start adjusting the fuel input a little bit and continue to preheat the canister. Once it gets going, you can tell it's ready to throttle up. We're getting real close here, and I think we're off. We're pretty much there at this point. And once you get to that point right there, it's easy sailing. You can do all the adjustments in the world, and it's really not going to go out on you. Even if you accidentally shut the fuel off all the way, it'll light right back up if it's hot enough in most cases. So there you go, guys. That's the ignition procedure. The first thing we do is validate we have a small amount of fuel flow by looking inside of it. Then we turn the fuel off. Then we add the secret sauce. Then we turn the blower on the lowest possible setting possible. Then we ignite it with the torch and keep our hand over that blower and just kind of let it slowly warm itself up. You don't want to do anything too quick. You cannot rush this part of the process unless you got a really big hot blowtorch, like a rosebud burner or something like that. So this thing is made out of stainless steel, so it should last just as long as a salamander does. Those things glow red hot too, and it does not require an air compressor of any kind. We are running on 120 watts of blower power, but I gotta tell you, I think this blower is a little bit underpowered. Even though it's doing a fine job, I think we could get a lot more power out of this thing with a better blower. But Jason doesn't need any more power than this. In fact, he asked if we could turn it down. So we're good to go in this particular case. We're gonna try to do some flow testing tomorrow